Welcome to our channel, Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive. In the quiet town of Maple Hollow, Halloween night was supposed to be fun, lights, candy, and laughter. But this year something felt different. 16-year-old Evan Reed walked alone under the cold streetlights, while a strange old woman handed him a single red candy and whispered, "Save it for when you are cold." He didn't know then that the candy was a key to a secret hidden beneath the old library steps, a place where a violin played without a player and where every song asked for one more listener. This is the story of the candy and the song of Halloween, a mystery that began with a sweet and ended with a silence. The small town of Maple Hollow was quiet most of the year. People knew each other's names and everyone liked calm nights. But on Halloween, the town changed a little. The air felt colder, the streets darker, and the houses looked different under the orange glow of pumpkins. Children laughed, parents smiled, and the sound of leaves moving in the wind filled the empty spaces. Evan Reed walked alone down a narrow street called Birch Lane. He was 16, tall and quiet. He wore a simple mask pushed up on his head and carried a flashlight that barely worked. He was not out for candy. He just liked walking and watching people. He liked how Halloween made the town look strange and beautiful at the same time. Most of his friends were at a party on the other side of town. They had told him to come, but he didn't want to. Loud music and noise gave him a headache. He preferred the cool air, the sound of footsteps, and the orange light coming from doorsteps. He liked how Halloween made the night feel alive. He checked his phone. There was a message from his younger sister, Mia. She was 12 and out trick-or-treating with some friends and a few parents. She told him she would meet him later near the old library for hot chocolate at the church stall. It was their small Halloween tradition. Every year they met there before going home. Evan smiled a little. He always kept his promises to her. He passed by a few houses. Most had bright lights and big pumpkins with smiling faces. Some had scary decorations, fake spiders, and hanging ghosts. But one house stood out. It had no lights. The windows were dark, and there was an empty bowl on the porch with a small sign that said, "Please take one." The bowl was empty now. The sign was crooked. Evan stopped for a second looking at it. He felt something odd, like the house was watching him. He shook his head and walked on. The street curved near the woods, and there, sitting in front of a small gate, was an old woman. She wore a long blue sweater and a gray hat. On her lap was a basket full of candies wrapped in shiny red paper. "Good evening," she said in a low voice. "Out late, aren't you?" "Just walking," Evan answered politely. The woman smiled. Her teeth were small and uneven. Her eyes were pale and gray. "Halloween is a strange night," she said softly. "Things look different, and sometimes they stay that way." Evan didn't know what to say. He gave a small nod. "Take one," she said, holding the basket toward him. He hesitated, but took a candy from the basket. It was wrapped neatly in clear plastic, and inside was a square red sweet that looked homemade. It reminded him of glass, dark, shiny, and deep. "Thank you," he said. "Save it," the woman said. "Don't eat it now. Save it for when you feel cold." Evan put it in his pocket. He looked away for just a moment. A car passed by, its lights flashing. And when he looked back, the woman was gone. The chair was empty and so was the gate. There were no footsteps, no sound. Only the basket was missing. He stood there, puzzled. Maybe she had gone inside quickly, he thought. Maybe she lived nearby. He didn't think too much about it. It was Halloween. Strange things happened. He continued walking until he reached the old library. The building was large and gray with broken steps and small dusty windows. A yellow tape covered one of the side doors because part of the steps had cracked the week before. A small sign said, "Use front entrance." But tonight the library was closed. It was always closed after dark. Evan liked the library. He used to come there after school to read mystery books. He also liked the old stories people told about it. One story said that long ago, a violin player used to sit on the steps every evening and play slow, sad music. But one Halloween, he vanished. Some people said he drowned in the river nearby. Others said he still played under the steps. but only for people who were alone. Evan didn't believe in ghosts, but the story always stayed in his mind. He stood near the fence across from the library, waiting for Mia. A light wind brushed his face. The air smelled like rain and smoke. A few kids ran past, laughing loudly. One of them dropped a lollipop, but they didn't notice. Evan picked it up and threw it into the trash can. Then he heard something faint, a sound like music. It was soft and slow, like a violin playing far away. He looked around, but the street was empty. He walked a few steps closer to the library. The sound was clearer now. It was coming from the steps. He looked hard, but there was no one there. His phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was Mia texting. "Almost there." He quickly replied, "Okay, see you soon." He turned back toward the library. The music had stopped. A few minutes later, he saw Mia running toward him. She wore a white ghost costume with a silver ribbon around her neck. Her friends followed behind her, a boy dressed as a zombie and a girl dressed as a witch. One of the parents, Mrs. Giles, waved from behind them. "You came," Mia said, smiling. "Of course," Evan said. "I promised." They all crossed the street to the church stall, where a man was giving out hot chocolate in paper cups. The smell of cinnamon filled the air. Mia talked quickly, telling stories about the houses she had visited and the candies she had collected. The other kids laughed, showing their plastic pumpkins full of sweets. Evan smiled and listened, but part of his mind stayed near the library. He could still feel the echo of that soft music. When their cups were almost empty, a man passed by with a black dog. The dog stopped suddenly and stared toward the library steps. It didn't bark, but its body tensed. Its ears stood up. It stayed still, watching. The man tugged on the leash, but the dog wouldn't move. It kept staring. Finally, the man pulled harder, muttering something, and the dog followed. But it looked back one last time. Mia noticed. "Why is that dog looking at the library?" she asked. Evan shook his head. "Dogs hear strange things," he said. "Maybe it's just the wind," but she frowned. "I heard something, too." "Like music," Evan didn't answer. He didn't want to scare her. He finished his drink and threw the cup away. "Let's go home," he said. "Mom made pie." "What kind?" Mia asked. "Pumpkin," he said, "with extra cream." That made her smile. They walked back through Birch Lane. Most houses had turned off their lights now. The wind had grown stronger. The paper sign on the porch they passed earlier had fallen to the ground. Somewhere, a door slammed. When they reached their house, the front pumpkin still burned, smiling softly in the dark. Their mother opened the door with a cheerful face. "There you are," she said. Come in, come in. I was starting to worry." Inside, the house was warm and smelled like cinnamon and pie. The radio played a soft song. Mia ran to the kitchen to show her candy. Evan followed slowly, feeling the weight of something in his jacket pocket, the red candy the old woman had given him. He took it out and looked at it again. It shone faintly in the light, almost like it was glowing. He placed it on his desk, not sure why he didn't throw it away. He didn't want to eat it either. That night, as he lay in bed, he thought he heard that same soft violin music again, just for a second, like someone playing far away under the earth or inside his mind. He told himself it was only the wind, but deep down, he knew it wasn't. The next morning was cold and gray. The sky looked tired and the air smelled like rain. Evan woke up early, but he didn't feel rested. He had strange dreams that slipped away when he tried to remember them. The only thing he could recall was the soft violin sound and the red candy glowing in the dark. He sat up and looked at his desk. The candy was still there, wrapped neatly in clear plastic. For a moment, he thought it looked brighter than before, like a tiny light under glass. He rubbed his eyes, and it looked normal again. He got ready for school. Mia was already in the kitchen, talking to their mom about her candy bag. She looked happy, but when she saw Evan, her smile faded a little. "You heard it too, right?" she asked in a quiet voice. Evan looked at her, pretending not to understand. "Heard what?" "The music," she said. "The song at the library." He shook his head. "You imagined it." "It was probably the wind or a phone speaker." Mia frowned but didn't argue. She looked tired too, like she hadn't slept well. Their mom didn't notice. She was busy making toast and packing lunches. As they walked to school, the street looked normal again. The pumpkins on the porches had started to sag. The decorations looked less fun now, more sad. The air was sharp and still. A few candy wrappers moved in the wind like small silver leaves. At the corner near the library, Evan stopped. The yellow tape was still around the steps, but something looked different. There was a small red shape lying near the bottom of the stairs. He walked closer and saw it was the same kind of candy the old woman had given him. A red square, perfectly wrapped. He felt a strange chill in his hands. He didn't touch it. He just stared. It was too much of a coincidence. Mia looked at him. "It's the same one," she said softly. "Like yours." "Don't touch it," Evan said quickly. "Why?" she asked. He didn't know what to say. "Just don't." They walked away, both silent. The sound of their shoes on the wet road was the only noise. At school, Evan couldn't focus. The teachers talked, the students laughed, but his mind kept going back to the candy. He tried to tell himself it was just some weird trick, maybe someone giving out the same kind. But deep inside, he didn't believe that. When the final bell rang, he walked home slowly. The sky was already turning orange. He saw kids playing with leftover costumes, running with fake swords and capes. But Birch Lane was quiet again. When he reached his house, his mom was at work, and Mia was at her friend's place. He was alone. He went to his room and looked at the candy on his desk. It looked the same, small, red, shiny. But now he noticed something new. The wrapper had a small mark on it, like a symbol. It was faint, almost invisible, shaped like a tiny violin. He picked it up. His hand felt cold instantly, like he was holding ice. He set it back down quickly. His heartbeat was fast. He didn't know why he felt so scared over a piece of candy. He sat on his bed and tried to think. The old woman had said, "Save it for when you are cold." That sentence kept echoing in his head. What did she mean? Maybe it was just a joke. Or maybe she knew something. As night came, the air grew colder. The wind howled around the house, making the windows rattle. Evan couldn't stop looking at the candy. He finally picked it up again, holding it between his fingers. It felt warm now, not cold anymore. Warm like something alive. He stared at it, confused. Then he heard it again, that faint, slow violin music. It came from somewhere near the window. He stood up and looked outside. The street was empty. The pumpkins had all gone dark. The wind moved the trees, but no one was there. The sound grew clearer, like someone was standing just below his window, playing. He opened the window a little and the music stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. He shut the window quickly and backed away. His hands were shaking. He looked down. The candy was still in his hand, but the wrapper was open now. He didn't remember opening it. The red sweet inside was gone. Only the wrapper remained, lying flat like empty skin. He turned the wrapper over. On the inside, written in small, faded letters, were 3 words. "Come find me." Evan froze. His throat went dry. He dropped the wrapper and stepped back. His heart was beating too fast. He wanted to call someone, but who would believe him? He thought about the old woman. He thought about the library. He tried to tell himself it was a prank, maybe someone trying to scare him. But deep inside, he felt the same cold as before, only stronger. He turned off his light and lay on his bed. He couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt louder, and the clock ticking, the pipes creaking, the wind tapping at the glass. Around midnight, he heard the music again, faint but clear, floating through the dark. He sat up. The sound wasn't outside this time. It was coming from downstairs. He stood up slowly, his feet touching the cold floor. He didn't turn on the light. He walked out of his room, down the hall, and stopped at the top of the stairs. The music was coming from the living room. Each step he took made the floor creak. He reached the bottom and looked around. The living room was empty. The pumpkin in the window had gone out. The only light came from the moon. The music stopped again. Then he saw it, a small trail of red, shiny candy wrappers leading to the front door. Each one looked just like his. He followed them, his heart pounding. The wrappers led all the way to the door. The lock clicked softly, even though he hadn't touched it. The door opened a little and the cold air rushed in. Outside, the street looked different. It was darker, emptier. But there, near the library, he saw something. a faint red light glowing under the stone steps. He didn't know why, but he stepped outside. The door closed behind him without a sound. He walked slowly down the street. The wind pushed against him, and the trees whispered above. His breath made white clouds in the air. The red light flickered in the distance, small but steady. When he reached the library, the light disappeared. The steps looked normal, cracked, and old. The yellow tape was still there. He knelt down and looked at the small gap under the lowest step. It was just a dark hole until he saw something move inside. Something small and quick, like a reflection or a hand. He heard the violin again, closed this time, so close it felt like it was coming from the ground. He whispered, "Who's there?" No one answered, but the music grew louder, clearer, sadder. Then he saw something glimmer in the dark. He reached out and touched it. It was cold and smooth. His fingers brushed against something thin, like a string. Then the music stopped again. The wind blew hard, and the night swallowed the sound. Evan stood up quickly, breathing fast. He turned around and started walking home. He didn't look back. He didn't want to, but behind him, under the step, something small and red began to glow again, brighter than before. The next morning, Evan felt like he hadn't slept at all. His eyes were heavy and his thoughts were cloudy. The memory of the night before played again and again in his mind. The music, the red glow, the cold air near the library steps. He told himself it was just a dream, but the dirt on his shoes said otherwise. He had really gone there. At breakfast, Mia noticed how quiet he was. "You look tired," she said. "I couldn't sleep," he replied. "Was it the music again?" she asked softly. Evan didn't answer. He just looked out the window. The day was gray again, the kind of day that made everything look older. The pumpkins on the porches had collapsed into themselves. The leaves were wet and stuck to the ground. Halloween was over, but the air still felt strange, like the town was holding its breath. After school, Evan walked home alone. He avoided the library, taking a longer route through the park. The trees there were tall and thin, the ground covered with golden leaves. He tried to clear his mind, but it didn't work. When he got home, Mia was already there, sitting on the couch with a worried look. "Mom's working late," she said. "Okay," Evan said. "I found something," she whispered, holding out her hand. In her palm lay another red candy, the same kind. "Same clear wrapper, same tiny violin mark. Where did you get that?" Evan asked sharply. "It was on the porch," she said. In front of the door, Evan's stomach felt tight. He took the candy and threw it into the trash. "If you see any more, don't touch them," he said firmly. "Why?" "It's just candy," Mia said, confused. "It's not," Evan said. He didn't explain further. He couldn't. He didn't know how. That night, when Mia went to bed, Evan sat in his room thinking. He opened his notebook and began to write everything down. The old woman, the candy, the music, the light under the steps. He needed to see the words on paper to make them real. He didn't know what to do next. Tell someone? Who would believe him? At around 11, he heard the wind again. Then, faintly, the music. The same violin song, slow and sad. He stood up and went to the window. Outside, the street was empty. But there, near the library, he could see that faint red glow again. It pulsed like a heartbeat. He turned away. He didn't want to go. But something in his mind whispered, "Come find me." He looked at the desk. The wrapper he had dropped last night was gone. Only a small red smear remained on the wood, like wax. He picked up his flashlight, put on his jacket, and stepped outside quietly. The night air was colder than before, sharp enough to sting his skin. The moon was half hidden by clouds. As he walked, the music grew clearer, leading him toward the library. His footsteps echoed on the empty road. When he reached the steps, he stopped. The yellow tape was torn now, blowing in the wind. The crack between the steps looked wider, deep enough for a hand to reach through. The red glow shone from inside. He knelt down and whispered, "Who are you?" For a moment there was silence. Then, slowly, a soft voice answered. A woman's voice, quiet and trembling. "Help me," it said. Evan froze. His heart was pounding. "Where are you?" he asked. "Below," the voice said. "Cold, so cold." Evan looked around. No one was there. The street was empty. The sound came from the darkness beneath the step. He pulled out his flashlight and pointed it into the gap. At first he saw only dirt and stone. Then he saw something, a shape, pale and small like a face. He gasped and dropped the flashlight. It rolled to the side, the light spinning wildly. When he picked it up again, the shape was gone. The violin began to play again, louder now, filling the street with its lonely sound. Evan felt dizzy. The red light under the steps flickered faster like it was breathing. Then he heard footsteps behind him. He turned quickly. It was the old woman. She stood in the middle of the street, wearing the same blue sweater and gray hat. Her face looked pale under the moonlight. "I told you to save it," she said softly. "But you didn't." Evan's throat felt dry. "Who are you?" he whispered. The woman smiled sadly. Someone who didn't listen either. She stepped closer. Her eyes were empty now, pale and glassy. "He took it from me, too," she said. "The man with the violin. He said he needed one more song." Evan stepped back. "What do you want from me?" The woman looked down at the step. "He's waiting. He always waits for the one who listens." The music grew louder, deep, sad, and full of something that felt alive. The air grew colder. The ground trembled softly. The woman pointed at the step. "You opened the song when you took the candy," she said. "Now you must close it. I don't understand." Evan shouted. "You will," she whispered. Soon, she turned and began to walk away. The red light flared once, and when he looked back at her, she was gone. Evan stood alone. The music filled his ears. He looked down at the step again. The light was brighter than ever. He didn't want to, but he reached toward it. The air around it was freezing. His fingers touched the edge of the stone. The light pulsed faster. Then all at once, the music stopped. The street went silent. The light went out. Evan stood frozen, breathing hard. The step looked normal again, like nothing had happened. He waited for something, a voice, a sign, but there was nothing. Only the wind. He turned and walked home slowly, his hands shaking. When he reached his house, the porch light was still on. He went inside, locked the door, and sat on the floor. He wanted to believe it was over. But then, from the table, he heard a soft sound, the crinkle of plastic. He turned his head. There, sitting where he had thrown the candy wrapper, was another one, neatly wrapped, red and shining, and under it, written on the table in faint letters, were the same 3 words, "Come find me." The next day, no one saw Evan at school. His mom thought he had left early. Mia waited by the gate, but he never came. That evening, the town was quiet again. The sun went down behind the trees and the streetlights flickered on. At the library, a soft violin began to play. Slow, sad, and gentle, like it was missing something it once had. If anyone walked by, they might have seen a small red glow under the steps. Just for a moment. And if they listened closely, they might have heard a boy's voice whispering along with the music. Not angry, not afraid, just part of the song now. The town of Maple Hollow went back to normal. The pumpkins rotted, the leaves turned brown, and Halloween was over. But sometimes, when the nights grew cold, and the wind moved through the streets just right, people said they could still hear it, the violin, the whisper, and the soft rustle of a candy wrapper opening in the dark. Maple Hollow went quiet again after that Halloween night. The pumpkins rotted, the lights went out, and the laughter faded. But sometimes, when the air grows cold and the moon hides behind the clouds, people say they can still hear a violin playing near the old library steps. A slow song, a sad song, and if you listen closely, you might hear a whisper too, soft as breath saying, "Come find me." Maybe it's just the wind, or maybe the music is still waiting for its next listener. No one knows. But every Halloween, someone swears they hear that song again. Subscribe to Crime Loom, and join us as we unravel more heists, mysteries, and untold legends.